So remember, we split topic 7 into 2 parts. We spent last week on on language, and that's why the language part of this objective is crossed out because we've already done that part. So your objective for today is going to be explain what factors led to the diffusion, so the spread, of universalizing and ethnic religions. So explain what factors led to the diffusion of universalizing and ethnic religions. All right, so the first thing that we are going to talk about is what is religion? We use the word all the time. We're pretty confident we know what it means, but if I asked you to give me a definition, you probably couldn't do it. The definition of religion is a set of beliefs and rituals concerning the cause, nature, and purpose of the universe, and to help humans understand their place in the world. Religion, more than any other culture trait, probably affects culture the most because whatever religion you practice, it teaches you right from wrong. It teaches you what's good and what's bad. It teaches you about what the structures in society should be and what should be in place. And I'm not talking about architecture, like structures in that sense. I'm talking about things like what role the government should play or how the family should be structured, those types of structures, what you should do with your money, prayer, what you should pray about, what you should want to happen, what your purpose is, what you should spend your life doing, what happens at birth, what happens at death, the coming of age. So when are you expected to be a man? Because normally that has to do with men. How are marriages performed? What is marriage? And also different holidays. So that is why I think that religion affects culture more than any other culture trait, because it determines so many other things. What you can say, what you can't say, what you can do, what you can't do, or what you plan on doing, or how you're going to live your life. It kind of guides you. All right. As long as you've got the definition, you should be good. Because it is a culture trait, it is going to diffuse from a culture hearth, just like any other culture trait. So religions have distinct places of origin from which they diffuse to other locations through different processes. And we're going to talk about what processes kind of caused those religions to diffuse. But either way, they do have an origin. And you need to know those origins. You need to be familiar with them. Like, okay, Judaism and Christianity diffused from Israel. Islam from Mecca. Buddhism and Hinduism from India. Now, obviously, when these religions kind of begin, these places weren't named Israel or China. Those come after, but this is like the modern day where it would be now. So I want you to take some time to write those down because you do need to be familiar with them. Now, the maps that I have on this slide are of various hearths. I couldn't find a map with all of the ones that you need to know like on one map. So this is kind of a combination. You're welcome to check these out, and zoom in on them on the slide deck. But we are going to, with the map activity, kind of talk about the hearths there. So if you can't really see the maps now, you don't have to worry about it too much because we will talk about it later. Any questions here? All right. This video is going to show you the spread of religion around the world, kind of how it does that, or how it did that with the 5 major religions. So at the bottom is going to be a timeline, and it's going to show you different colors and what they represent. So, Jeff, can you go turn off that other light for me, please? And we're going to talk about why that is. But the next thing that we're going to look at is the fact that actually 3 of the world's major religions are considered to have a common founder. Do you know what those 3 religions could be? One of them is Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. They're all related through, hold on, let me get through this. Abraham. Okay? So Abraham, you saw in the video, I made a note, Abraham is born. So Abraham is born, and he grows up and he gets married, and he's actually a little bit wealthy. He has a bunch of servants and things like that. Well, God speaks to Abraham and says, Abraham, you're going to be the father of many nations. If you will take your possessions and move to the promised land, you will have many sons. You will be the father of this nation. So Abraham is obedient. He takes his wife and all of their possessions and he moves. That's the start of Judaism. Well, after a few years, he and his wife Sarah are already really old. So Abraham's like, well, God, I don't know how I'm going to have any kids, but whatever you say. They're like hundreds of years old at this point. So they move all of their people to the promised land. But Abraham becomes impatient and decides to sleep with one of his servants named Hagar. She conceives a son, but God was not too pleased with Abraham, and Abraham probably felt guilty and a little ashamed. So when that son was born, his name was Ishmael. Abraham banished Ishmael and his mother, Hagar, to lands in Arabia. He said, y'all have to go. You've got to get out of here. So they weren't allowed to live with Abraham anymore. Well, from the descendants of Ishmael, generations and generations later, we get Muhammad, who claimed to be a prophet and is the founder of Islam. So he is related to Abraham. But remember, God promised that he would make Abraham the father of many nations. God fulfills his promise, and Abraham's wife Sarah becomes pregnant with a son that they name Isaac. So Isaac eventually has a son named Jacob. Now these people love having babies, all right? There are a lot more kids, but I'm just giving you the important lineage, all right? So one of Isaac's sons is Jacob. Jacob has 12 sons. They're known as the 12 tribes of Israel. And actually, people who are ethnically Jewish, a lot of them can trace their ancestry straight back to one of these 12 sons. Well, from one of the 12 sons come David, of David and Goliath, King David. And from the lineage of David comes Jesus. Now, Jesus wasn't like, oh, I'm here to make a new religion. Jesus came as a part of the promise that God gave to the Jews. Some Jews accepted him. Those that did became Christianity as we know it today. Those that didn't remain the Jewish people that we know today. So it is kind of a split. They're more related than Islam is. But Islam, Christianity, and Judaism all recognize Abraham in their holy books as like the beginning. All right, so are there any questions about that? Does that surprise anybody? Kind of cool? No, it is. They're a lot more related than people think. Abraham is in all 3 of the holy books. So the Torah, the Quran, and the Bible. He's all in there in the beginning. So that is the lineage of Abraham. I just like explaining that to people because they don't really realize how connected it is. So no questions about this? Cool. Now, Emma had mentioned when we watched the video that Islam really spread pretty far, a lot further than she expected. And that's because it is considered what is called a universalizing religion. And that is what we're going to look at next. There are different types of religions, and practices and belief systems of those religions impact how widespread the religion is. So, Christianity, Islam, and Buddhism are considered universalizing religions. That means that they actively seek converts. Their religion calls them to reach out and try and convert other people to their religion. So that causes these religions to be widespread because their followers are called to convert other people. Now, because they are actively seeking to convert others, universalizing religions spread through both expansion diffusion, so like just word of mouth, kind of telling other people about your religion, but also relocation diffusion. We send out missionaries, and in the early times through conquering, and people, especially the Spanish and the English, bringing Christianity to the Americas and to Africa. That because they were called to do that. They were called to convert others. But ethnic religions like Judaism and Hinduism do not actively seek converts. You're just born into that religion. Their religion does not call them in any way to go out and try and convert people. If people convert on their own, okay, but this religion you're not called to do that if you practice these religions. Therefore, they generally only spread through relocation diffusion. So if a group of people leave the hearth and move somewhere else, they bring that religion, but it's not just expanding through word of mouth because people are telling about their religion. Any questions on this? All right, so the next thing that I want us to look at is this map right here. So this again is on a global scale, but it kind of shows you a little bit more detail. So like we were talking about earlier, how the Christian faith has multiple branches or whatever. This is kind of showing that. So the yellow is like Catholicism. The green is Protestant. That's going to be like Baptist. And then the orange are other various Christian churches that they just kind of lumped together, like Lutheran and stuff like that. The light blue is Mormon. You can see that at the in the western part of the country. That doesn't mean you can't find Mormons here. It just means that a majority of them do live in Utah. So this map just kind of shows you a little bit more detail. Muslim, the Islamic religion, they do have two branches. They have the Sunnis and the Shias. Most are Sunni, which is the light blue, like in Africa and in Asia. And then the Shia, or the Shiites, sometimes that they're called, is the dark blue that's really just in Iran. Those are the extremists. You hear about extreme Muslims. The Shiites are the extremists. The Sunnis are the peaceful. So there's a split there. So that's a little bit more detailed map. This one is a breakdown of the United States. So it's the largest participating religious groups by county. Again, it just shows you a little bit more detail. The red, where you would live, that means a majority of the people are practicing the Baptist religion. Blue is Catholic, so you can see a lot of Catholicism. Green is Methodist, so that's another big one. And orange is Lutheran. So those are the big ones around there. But the next map I want to show you, because a lot of times we look at who's the biggest? Who's the most? What are we practicing? The next map I'm going to show you is going to be like the second biggest. So, all right, if people aren't practicing Christianity in Lincoln Parish, like what's the next biggest religion? What do you think it is? Huh?
That gold church.
With the dome?
Yes.
What do you think it is?
Catholic?
No, that's Christianity.
No, there's another one. It's like Muslim.
It's Islam, yeah. So this map shows you that. You can see Lincoln Parish, it's green up there. So the next biggest religious group in Lincoln Parish is Islam. Where I'm from, Rapides Parish, it's pink. It's Judaism, which would make sense. I told you my lineage was actually Jewish. That's where, my family is from. So that would be that. But this shows you like the next biggest group. Because like I said, a lot of times we're like, okay, everyone is Christian. No, not everyone is. So let's look at, okay, if they're not this, then what is the probability of them being Islam or whatever? So yeah, the next biggest practicing group here is actually Islam. So are there any questions about religion, how it spreads, why it spreads, different things like that? All right, then go ahead and do your summary and then get out 7 different colors. 7 different colors.